Hey, it's time for the Twice Removed podcast with Linda and Gina, where we talk about all things genealogy, including making connections with long-lost relatives while snooping in on our ancestors. Hey, it's good to know where you come from.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Twice Removed podcast with Linda and Gina. And today we're going to be talking about the importance of family trees.
That's it. Your roots.
Yeah,
planting your roots.
And planting your tree.
On paper.
Or digitally, right?
Well, nowadays, yeah. But, I just like it on the end of the DNA shows where they roll out that big old family tree. It's impressive and great. But, yeah, digitally is the way to be now, I guess. So
I would never be able to write that small.
But you know what?
I'd be taping more pages to it.
It's important. It's extremely important thing to do for different reasons, of course. But
generally, unless you're famous, nobody's really going to do it for you. No one's going to track your history for you. So somebody needs to do it if they think it's at all important for future generations, or just for yourself if you want to know where you came from.
And it is important. You guys got to pass this stuff down. I mean, I know when, great-grands and great-great-grands pass away, you go into the houses and clean it out and just throw away stuff. Oh, we don't need great-grandfather's birth certificate, or we don't. But you know what? There's vital clues there, and they're just being tossed away, and it's heartbreaking.
It is.
Heartbreaking. So we're going to start a family tree, and we're going to tell you the vitals to do this family tree. And it's easy, guys. It is easy. Yes, there might be some roadblocks along the way, or a brick wall or something like that, as we call it. But we got this. We can do this. So what's the first thing, Linda, that we need to do?
Well, we find all of our resources, pictures from photo albums, family Bibles, talk to older relatives, try to write down whatever you remember, write down everybody you remember growing up with, and who was at the, Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving or whatever holiday, and try to remember who they were and write their names down, and then ask whoever if you can't tell.
That's it.
Just,
get your little handy dandy tape recorder out and start asking people. And do you remember, my great grandmother was 96 and in a home and still going strong. She had a broken hip, and we went with a tape recorder one day and asked her, and 3 hours later, she told us everything from the start of her life in a one-room classroom, coming across, the Oregon Trail, all that stuff, and would have never, ever, ever got that information from her son, my grandfather. There was nothing really around about it that we have yet to find. She had a lot of sisters, so there's another cousin that has done some research. But ask people, just let them ramble, let them run, because they remember more than you think they remember.
They especially remember their childhoods, because that was like generally a happy time, being a little kid, and all of those old memories. And they'd be able to tell you who aunts and uncles were that were older than them sometimes,
Yeah, but how deep do you go? How far what do we need to include? How far back do we need to go, do you think?
It depends on how crazy you are about all of this stuff. If you want to know who everybody is, first of all, I'm trying to put together the family tree from the people older than my grandparents, right? Mm-hmm. But so the younger people, it's like, I don't know who some of my cousins' grandchildren are, because they're in another country. I don't see them at holidays or anything like that. And I don't know maiden names. I don't necessarily know my first cousin's mother's maiden name. And then you want to include some of that stuff in there, and you should have a little bit on them. I mean, I'd like to have, this is an aunt that I knew when I was growing up. Every time I went to visit, she'd always stuff 50 Deutschmarks in my hand, and don't tell anybody, and she wasn't related to me by blood, but she was so sweet, and just was nice to me. And it's I had no idea what her maiden name was until 2 weeks ago. and and my cousin didn't even know necessarily, because her grandmother had been married a couple times, so she wasn't sure which one was her mother's maiden name, and she was the youngest kid, so she had to ask her sister.
And if you are putting them up,
yeah,
you'll get hints and stuff from the different
and take the hint, people. Take the hint.
Take the hint, and it'll attach to that. So there'll be records piling up on your family tree.
Yeah, especially if it's prior to like 1950. Because the census stuff is what they release here. In Germany, it's a little bit longer. Sometimes I can't necessarily find anything on aunts and uncles. I can find grandparent stuff and their siblings, but not anything newer. You'd actually have to go to the town and look in their archive. And who has time to just fly to Germany for like, a day?
Right. And you know what? And also with wars and stuff back in the day, archives got burnt down.
Yeah.
So, there's not a lot of records for that. And people that came here as slaves, there's not a lot of records. Things just stop.
And fortunately, a lot of churches kept records. So if they didn't, during like the World War II, they might have bombed the city hall or whatever, government buildings, but they didn't necessarily blow up the churches.
Right.
They wouldn't do that because, they might have been religious too. And they're like, I can't do that. I'm not going to blow up that gorgeous, Catholic church that's, 500 years old or whatever. No way. So, you could probably check and see, oh, what religion were you? Oh, we were Catholic. Okay, well, let's find the Catholic Church and see if we can contact them. And a lot of times in the churches, they speak English in Europe. So it's just, especially when it's a beautiful cathedral and there's a lot of people coming through to visit. And yeah.
Well, and don't think that like, I can't, a death certificate doesn't tell me anything. It tells you a lot.
It sure does.
Any of the birth certificate, marriage certificate, look at everything, because it's only going to take one thing to spark a name. It's going to pop up and it's going to spark something, or, it's just going to start you. And if you hit a brick wall, which we all hit brick walls, I hit them on my Italian side constantly. You just keep digging and just start looking at, like Linda said, take the hint.
And for American records, newspapers.com, and this is not a paid endorsement, but I love that service because some people back in the day, they used to really just write up about every little freaking detail that went on in your life, especially if you're from a smaller town. And it was like the social thing, like a social calendar. Like even when my mother and I went to Europe for the summer to visit our family, it wasn't like we were going on this, big European vacation or anything. We were staying with relatives. But, they would write it up in the local newspaper and say, Mrs. Anderson and her daughter Linda went to, and all this blah, 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 society stuff, right? But when people in society were getting married, they would say, oh, the daughter of, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, whatever, Smith. And so you could find like all the people who were in attendance. They would say who the bridesmaid was. So sometimes it's a sister. You can find like the ring bearer might be somebody's, nephew or whatever. And it's like, oh, there's that last name. And I noticed that last name before when I was looking in the records. I'm on the right path here. So, old newspapers are really a great way to go. And obituaries, same thing that, newspapers.com, you can sort by marriage, wedding announcements, engagements, and obituaries, of course. And then like legacy obituaries and finding out stuff, and there's always going to be some names in there. You don't always have to have the death certificate because you can't always get that for recent passings. So you have to go to the obituaries in the newspapers, and not everybody does that as much anymore. You used to have to. In some places, you had to post it.
Yeah.
Which was, I found very kind of ridiculous, but you had to pay for it. Used to be cheaper. It used to be like $50 or something. Now it's like $350, $500 to post an obituary for somebody.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't do it because, whatever, if they're not forced to by their, a lot of times the funeral home does it anyway.
And you can always go to Find a Grave. There's usually obituaries and stuff up there that people have posted.
Yeah.
And
that's a sad thing in Germany. and I don't know if it's like this in a lot of European places, but in Germany, in the hometown my mother is from, they only have the graves available for 25 years unless you want to extend it. And I don't know how many times you can extend it. I know Heidelberg, I think, is like 30 years, or maybe it was 20. It was off from what my mother's hometown was. But they're not even going to be there anymore. You can't even go visit after like 30 years unless the family keeps paying for the grave to be reinstated or kept up.
What do they do with them? Dig them up?
No, they just drop them down and they put another one on top of it and take the stone away and everything.
Holy cow. Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's
Come on,
really
people,
sad.
don't let this happen.
Yeah,
to
so
your
that's why it's really good to if you can go get pictures and document it at least, and then put it on Find a Grave, and then you can always go back later and amend it and say, well, this has been removed, but here's what it looked like.
Yeah.
But I always thought that was horrifying.
And attach it to your family tree.
Yeah. And because my aunt, before she passed away a couple of years ago, she was saying, yeah, I talked to Willie, who was the only other sibling left besides her at the time, and he's still here. But she said, well, do we want to keep our parents' graves or not? So she was leaving it up to him. So I guess I don't know what he decided, but it had come up again for renewal. And it was like my grandfather died in 1980 and my grandmother in 1990. So it's the last one who passed plus 25 years.
That's not very long.
No, it's not really. You would think if people pass away like when they're old and it's a generation, then you figure, well, by the time the next generation's gone, then nobody really needs that again. Well, what about the grandkids? Grandkids might want them to go, and visit. But who does that anymore? Does anybody go to grave sites anymore to visit? You do?
Me, yeah. In fact, we have them all. We're all like in one place. There's a few, that are sparsed around, but the majority of the olders are all at the same place. So we always try to find them and stuff. And we just found a great uncle and my great great grandmother's stone. And we had one of the workers there, and he couldn't find it. And so they repainted the numbers on the sidewalk or the street where you park and stuff. And so I told my mom, I was with my mom and my aunt, and I said, let's just try one more time. And so we followed the little clues and walked right on them, right to them. And it was like, there you go. There they were. And it was so great to finally have them too and stuff. But, and everybody's kind of situated in the same area, but spread apart. So, but yeah, we still go.
Yeah, they still do that in Germany. My one cousin, she goes and she puts like little candles, on the grave. That's their thing there. They don't put flowers; they put candles.
Used to have people would bring their barbecues, little hibachis, and cook, and they'd basically have a party, like if it was the birthday of their loved one or whatever. But at this place up in LA, people bring their umbrellas and sit there for the day and talk and sit in a circle around the grave and talk and stuff. And these people have been gone for a while. It's not like newly, departed.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me that they do that. That's, a little much, but
it's amazing that they still are doing it nowadays.
Yeah.
It must be people older than us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I know the tradition in Germany is they still wear black.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we do too, I think.
But for like a year?
Oh, no. That's in mourning, yeah. That's very Jewish, I believe.
Like I said, I'm Jewish adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah. It all comes from the same place,
So let me ask you, what do you do when you hit that brick wall?
Well, when I'm hitting it really hard, I go to, if I'm allowed to have a DNA test, and I can research people on there, that helps me a lot, right? That's the first thing that I would suggest to do. And, you've found tons of people like that too, right? This is no secret. But what if you have the DNA test and you can't figure out who they are? That's a brick wall right there to have.
It's a horrible brick wall because you want to be able to find them, and it's like, oh.
This is when you go to the relationship chart that we were discussing in another show, and you can go and say, well, okay, how many centimorgans of DNA do I share with this person? And try to find it on there, and then you can say, okay, well, they're a second cousin twice removed or a third cousin-ish person. So that's the set of grandparents that I'll go look for. And I'll try to see who my shared matches are, and hopefully I'm on the right branch. So that's a way to go. So you can kind of tell if it's a certain amount, then you'll know that they are 2 generations back. Yeah, so another way to do it then is, if you know their name, then go to newspapers.com and try to see if you can find, a birth announcement, a wedding announcement, something announcement. Maybe there's, maybe they went on a trip or something and they wrote it up in the column someplace because it was so fascinating. Google, just plain old Google search just to see if anything comes up. Maybe you can at least find out where they live. It might be helpful. Are they living in a town that sounds familiar?
Well, let's face it, people, too. If you're going to Ancestry and MyHeritage and Family Search and 23andMe, you're going to get more if you subscribe. It's going to cost you bucks, don't you think?
Well, clearly.
I mean, I find a lot of stuff because I'm like refusing to pay for, but I see things now like in MyHeritage popping up going, oh, I haven't seen that. But it's like, oh, paid subscription required. So I thought, okay. Haven't done it yet, but I think that's where it's going to head to.
Well, the thing is with these is that they have different sets of records. They don't all have the same records available. It's like they're available to everybody, but you'd have to be able to access them. So what they do is they access them and then they make the copies. They scan everything and they upload it. And that's why you're paying for the service. Otherwise, you would have to go to Delaware, to like this little tiny town, and go to their city office and ask them for their microfiche from 1970.
Which would cost you more than $140.
Exactly. But at the same time, I know that using FamilySearch.org, which is free, MyHeritage, which I went ahead and got because I noticed they had some really cool stuff on there, and that I had a lot of my Scandinavian family over there, and Ancestry, that I don't get the same records from service to service. And I'm glad I have all 3 available.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I got this really great deal on newspapers.com. I'm going to say it again. Still not a paid endorsement. But
kind of thinking it is.
Well, it belongs to Ancestry,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they own it now. So I don't know if they did before, but it's really handy because when you click when you want to go read something that's in newspapers, it actually opens up and you can see the whole thing instead of sitting there and saying, oh, I can't read this because it's blocked. Great.
And they got to pay those people who scan that stuff in because that's a lot.
Well, somebody's got to do the work, right?
Yeah.
And then social media, I found
Have you found people on social media?
Yeah, if I was looking for them, I found them. Yeah, it was like, clearly, if it's John Smith, probably not going to get so lucky. But some really like unique names, it's not that hard. And then there they are. And they, if they haven't locked themselves down too much. And then if you kind of have an idea of where they're probably related from, like, it's like, is that like a niece of like a second cousin or something or whatever? And then you just go in their Facebook and you see if you can if they have it open, if you can see who else is in there and find names. Like, oh, well, there's that last name. Okay, they're related to me. Great. The one thing I really liked that I just tried out for the first time is the DNA Painter. DNA.com.
What's that?
DNApainter.com. This one is really cool. You can upload your family tree in there if you want to, or you can just put together basics like for the branch that you're trying to research. And what you do is you put in the name, their date, their birth year, and their if they passed away, the year they died, and male or female, and the centimorgans if they're a DNA match. and it calculates it, and it gives you, hypotheses of how they might be, if they might be the one, if you're looking for somebody's father, or, how could they possibly be related to me? I have all these other people in there. Which branch are they coming in on? I'm doing this right now, and I've got something. It's like you can disqualify an entire section because the centimorgans are too low for that to be the parent branch. So it's like, okay, well, maybe it's another one of the great grandparents' kids that this person is coming in on. So it's like I've got 5 siblings that are my mother's father and his brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Okay. So I've got all of them branched out with all of their descendants that I know of. And I've researched a bunch of them. And then I put in all of the information, birth and or death, whatever. And then if I have DNA matches, then I plug them in. And then, okay, I need to find out who's this person's parent is. And it'll point to it. It'll say that the probability is this one. This is probably it right here. Until you research it and say, sure, but the parent would have had to have been 10. So this is not right. But it helps you narrow things down a lot.
Does that help you identify like a mystery DNA cousin or relative? Or
if you kind of know where they're from, because it takes all of the DNA information and uses it to, calculate. The only problem is that if you have a low sharing DNA or a high sharing DNA relative, it throws off your numbers because it makes it look like that branch is not part of the calculation. It can't be because it won't fit. They're either too high or too low. So it'll make it look like instead of that being that person's son, it would maybe have to be their grandson or great-grandson. Or it would have to be their parent. Or they would have to have a sibling. So it's good to a point as long as you know that your DNA shares are average. If they're too high or too low, it doesn't help you too much. But DNA Painter, it is an interesting thing to look at because you can put it up there as a family tree, put all that information in, and then it just kind of like, it gives you a place to look. It's like, well, I wonder if it would be here. No, that won't work either because they would have had to have been 12 or they would have been in the wrong state at that age, So, but it is helpful. And then another one that I use, this is like so sneaky and I don't like these services much, but those background check places online?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I never thought of that to use that for a DNA search, but yeah, why not?
Well, not DNA search, but a name search. So, and this really all comes down to people changing their names when they get married and all that too. It's just a pain, right? But Fast Background Check is the one that I've been using, and I don't use it for anything except trying to see who their relatives might be.
And so it provides that info?
It's not necessarily all correct, but some of it is. It's like you'll know if you have the right person, and it does lead you into a good direction for names. It's like, well, this may not be the right one, or whatever it could be, but it's helped me already.
That's great.
So,
I wouldn't think of that, but
well, you can find people.
Now I have it in my pocket, but get that tree up there. Get it up there. Ask for help. You can always come to us at twiceremoved.net and we'll provide any help we can or try to steer you in the right direction. Look for Linda's blogs. She's got a bunch of blogs after the shows and stuff. And, we'd love to interact with you guys. Ask questions and get answers because know what?
Videos are coming.
Oh, videos. And we're all in it together. I mean, we got we're all out for the same thing, and it's not a competition. We can share the wealth on this. So we're not hoarding and greedy and all that stuff on this thing. And that's probably a great thing about finding your DNA and stuff. You can get the help, because everybody is out there to help you. There's Facebook groups. There's, people you can pay to help you if you just can't do it or don't have the time or the heart to do it or want to do it. Everything exists. So
Well, people will look
can be
stuff
done.
up. People will look
Yeah.
stuff up for you if you're stuck and say,
Oh,
look,
yeah.
I can't really afford to get a paid service right now, and I'm stuck on this person. Could somebody please look this up for me?
Yeah,
Or,
they're called genealogy angels, and they're all over Facebook
Yeah,
and wherever
Reddit.
else. And you just
yeah.
give them what you have, and they can run with it, and they
Yeah.
enjoy it too. It's a love thing. A little.
Well,
you know.
it's anybody who should have been a detective and did not take that career path.
Well, Linda, I enjoyed this one a lot because I learned a lot.
So did I.
So thank you for sharing.
Okay,
You
so
had to share.
we have to wrap it up now, I guess, because we've been talking.
Yes. Until next time, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you. And
We'll see you soon. The Twice Removed podcast is produced by Linda Anderson and Gina Glass. All opinions expressed are of our own and of our guests. For more information and upcoming guests, please visit our website, twiceremoved.net.